for this next topic, this is topic BB.6, solve a quadratic equation using square roots. So what we're going to be doing in this topic is solving by taking the square root of a number. Now, oftentimes you're going to see something like this. 5 squared, what does that mean? That means 5 times 5 equals to 25, correct? Now you can use a calculator to solve any of these if you need to. But let's say I gave you x squared equals 25. So then what is it that you have to do? You have to find an x that is going to give you that 25. How? That means that something, when you do x times x, will give you 25. Now notice how they're the same variable. That means they have to be the same number as well. So you cannot get 25 by doing something, for example, like 5 times 4, because that doesn't give you the number. It has to be the same one. So then what would you use there? 5 times 5 to get 25. Okay? So now, let's say that you have x squared equals 16, a different number, not 5 anymore. So how does that work? That means I need two numbers that are the same number, that when I multiply them together, x times x, or number times number, is going to give me 16. So what same number is that? The number that works here is 4. 4 times 4 gives us 16. So then what we're going to do is 4 times 4 equals 16. That means that x is equal to 4. Now if you notice here though, on the side, what I have is I have two spots. Why? The reason that there is two spots is because x can also be negative 4. Why can it also be negative 4? Because if you were to multiply negative times negative, you still end up getting a positive result. So both of them will work, the positive 4 and the negative 4. Now, let's say you don't want to do it this way. What you could do to get rid of the squared, the solving method, or the solving way, is if this is your expression. So I'm going to go ahead and use the question from our IXL now. So let's say we're to have r squared equals to 36. What you would have to do is take the square root. Right, so make sure you know the difference. Square is that little 2 on the top, the exponent. Square root is this one right here, that little check mark looking thing. So you take the square root of both sides. When you do that, that cancels the square root and the square, leaving you with just r. And then if you were to take the square root of 36, that will give you, now you can use the basic phone for answering these questions, or you can use any calculator that you find online. But when you take the square root of 36, that is going to give you 6. Why? Because, going back to the explanation I did about exponents right now, 6 times 6 gives you 36. Now remember what we talked about also. Is positive 6 the only answer? No. We could also have negative 6 as an answer, because negative times negative becomes positive. Okay, so again, for this one, 81, you can simply go to your calculator, take the square root of 81, and that is going to give you 9. Remember though, our answers can be a positive or a negative because you have those two options there. Square root of 49. So you can go to your calculator, you do square root of 49, and that is going to give you 7. And keep in mind that you can have a positive or a negative 7. So these first questions are pretty simple, pretty basic. That's what they're going to ask you. Now moving on to these next questions. Here you are going to have to do a little bit more work. Again, if you need to, you can use any other application online to help you solve these, and calculators online to help you solve this. I'm completely okay with that. So then what you're going to do here is, now you have m squared minus 97 equals negative 72. we have to remember PEMDAS and solving. So what we are going to do here is we're going to be trying to leave this m by itself or isolate it. So what we're going to do is we need to move this negative 97 to the opposite side of the equation. We're going to do plus 97 plus 97. So when you do that, that is going to cancel the 97s on the left side. And then on the right side, you have negative 72 plus 97. That is going to give us 25. Okay? Equals, and then we can bring down our m squared. So then from there, this is stuff that we already did before. It's very simple. It just involves one step, adding or subtracting a number, and then taking the square root. So square root of 25 leaves you with m equals 5 or m equals negative 5, because it can be both of those answers, remember? So then that is going to be my answer here, 5 and negative 5. Again, the same thing we just did. So another example here, we have x squared minus 64 equals 0. Add 64 to both sides of your equation. They cancel on the left side, leaving you with just x squared equals 0 plus 64 is 64. Then you take the square root of both sides, leaving you with x equals 8 or x equals negative 8. So a lot of what you are going to be doing on this topic is the same exact thing. So this one right here, the known number, you just take the square root of 49. That gives you 7 and negative 7. Again, if at any point you're having too much trouble with this, you can always use any calculator you find online. Feel free to ask me questions at Google Classroom. And I will have the Google meetings open all week, Monday through Friday, same times that I always do. Check Google Classroom if you want to join in. You guys don't have to talk, you don't have to do anything, just come in and listen on the explanations if you want. That's all you have to do. Square root of 81, we did this a while ago. It could be positive 9 or negative 9. Okay. Now for this one, this question, what we are going to do, real solutions means that you have to have a positive or a 0 inside of your square root. If you ever end up with something like this, square root of a negative number, then you do not have real solutions, and you would say none or no real solutions. One real solution is if you ever end up with just one answer. So notice how here we have two answers, two possible answers. Well, with one real solution, it can only one of them can work. So then, let's go ahead and look at this example that you have here. You have d squared plus 27 equals to 4. Our first step, subtract 27. So you'll have d squared equals 4 minus 27. That is going to give us negative 23. Sorry. Then we take the square root of both sides. And look at this, what I just told you right now. So you're going to end up having d equals the square root of negative 23. You can take the square root of a negative, but that is not going to give you a real solution. That will give you an imaginary solution. So for this one, simply put, because of that negative inside, no real solution, and that's it. You just stop there. Same thing for this one. X squared plus 35 equals 0. Minus 35 to both sides. So you're going to end up getting x squared equals negative 35, which we then have to take the square root And look at that, you have a negative inside the square root, no real solution. Right, so this one right here, this next one, you have p squared equals negative 55. What do I have to do? Take the square root, negative inside, no real solution. Okay. So this one right here, you're going to have j squared minus 52 equals 0. You're going to be adding 52 to both sides. J squared equals 52. Then you're going to take the square root of both sides. This one isn't negative, so it's going to have answers. So then you can just use your calculator to calculate this, take the square root of the number, and it's going to end up giving you that j is equal to 7.211 and other numbers, right? So we don't really need to know the rest of the numbers. But what that means is you can multiply 7.211 times 7.211, and it's going to give you that number, or at least very close to it, since you're not using all the decimals. But guess what? If you take the negative of it, then it is also going to work. So it's going to be negative 7.211. So then how many answers can this have? It can have 2 answers. So 2 real solutions. Okay. Now let's look at this next example. We have w squared minus 37 equals negative 20. Add 37 to both sides. That's going to eliminate them on the left side, leaving you with w squared. And negative 20 plus 37, what is that going to give us? That is going to give us 17. Okay, now just as before, so we don't really, because it's not asking us for an answer, we don't really need to check for the exact number. But once we take the square root, if I also take the square root of 17, that is going to give me 4.123. Now I'm just typing these onto my phone's calculator. You turn it sideways and it's going to give you the option for square root, and then you can find the calculations for them there. Because it's not asking us for the decimals, we don't really need to be knowing what exactly they are. So this one, 2 real solutions. Okay, take the square root, it's positive, 2 real solutions. Once you get to this type of question, I'm only going to stop here and then we'll go on to the next topics. So then here you have 32 g squared minus 18 equals 54. So what I need to do here is I need to do plus 18. So I'm going to have 32 g squared equals 54 plus 18. That is going to give me 72. Now what I have to do next is I have to divide both sides by 32 to get rid of that number in the front, giving me g squared equals, let's see, 72 divided by 32. That is going to give me 2.25. Okay. So can I simplify that? Fraction, I can divide both numbers by 2. So the reason I'm doing this now is because it tells me here my answers have to be written as integers, which is a whole number, or a fraction. So then I'm going to have to write it as a fraction just like it is here, but in simplified form. Let me go ahead and do it that way actually. We're not going to use the decimal for this one. we're going to simplify the fraction. So 72 and 32, both of those numbers can be divided by 2. So if I was to divide 72 by 2, that gives me 36. And 32 divided by 2, that gives me 16. Now, could I simplify this a bit more? Yes. But because I know that those numbers are actually perfect squares, in other words, 6 times 6 is 36, and 4 times 4 is 16, I'm going to keep them that way. I take the square root of those. So when I take the square root of a fraction, I take the square root of the top and the bottom. So what is the square root of 36, sorry? That is going to give us 6. And the square root of 16 is going to give me 4. So if I was to divide those two numbers, 6 divided by 4, that's still going to give me a decimal, but I can simplify that. So I can divide both of those numbers by 2, which is 3 over 2. And that will be the simplest form. Right, so this last question is going to be a little bit harder, but if you get to this point, you can continue or you can stop there. Either way, by this point, you'll be at a passing grade, so you're more than okay. But from here, so remember, I can have a positive or a negative of that answer. So 3/2 or negative 3/2. Okay, so that's all you have to do in these types of questions. Again, if you have any additional questions, you can always log on to Google Classroom, send me an email, log on to the meetings that I host every day. That way you can ask questions, and you don't even have to talk. You can type them in, or you can just present your screen, and I'll help you with your questions. This question is very similar to the one we just did. So you can just follow the steps to try to get to the same